All right, today we're pulling back the curtain on a company that's so deeply woven into our daily lives, we barely even notice it anymore. Alphabet. You know, the parent company of Google. I mean, think about it. From looking up a recipe to finding your way across town, its DNA is everywhere. So how did they build this digital empire? Let's get into it.
So to really understand the power we're dealing with here, just look at this number. $102.3 billion. And no, that's not for a whole year. That's what Alphabet pulled in a single quarter. This is way beyond just a company. It's a global economic force of nature.
And that brings us to the big question, right? How on earth did a university research project, which was originally called Backrub, by the way, how did that become one of the most powerful, influential companies in the history of the world? Let's break down the blueprint.
Okay, so it all started with the code, with one single brilliant idea that let two PhD students take the absolute chaos of the early web and finally make sense of it.
And that idea was PageRank. The genius of it was its elegant simplicity. See, before Google, you had search engines like Alta Vista that just looked for keywords, which was super easy to trick. But Page and Brin had this breakthrough. What if we treat links like citations in a research paper? A link from a trusted, important site is like a vote of confidence, making the page it links to more important.
And this is basically how it worked. You had the messy, disorganized web of the 90s. Then, PageRank comes in and starts counting all those links as votes. And just like that, the most important, the most relevant pages bubble right up to the top. For the first time ever, search actually worked. It was useful, and people absolutely loved it.
But here's the thing. A great search engine doesn't automatically build a trillion-dollar empire. For that, you need an economic engine, a serious one. And that brings us to the second piece of the puzzle, the clicks-to-cash machine.
This right here is where Google went from a cool tech company to a business juggernaut. They basically invented what we call pull advertising. Instead of just pushing random ads in your face, they realized that when you search for something, like new running shoes, you are literally telling them what you want to buy. So an ad for shoes at that exact moment isn't annoying, it's actually helpful. And by only making advertisers pay when someone actually clicked, it became a perfect system. The result? Well, it was a financial explosion like nothing the world had ever seen. Just look at this timeline. 86 million in 2001. A few years later at their IPO, over $3 billion. By 2017, they're clearing $100 billion in a year. And by 2025, they're doing that in a single quarter. It wasn't just a business model, it was basically a license to print money.
And here's the kicker. Even today, with all of their wild, futuristic projects, we're talking self-driving cars, advanced AI, all of it, that advertising machine is still the heart of the empire. As of 2025, about 77% of all of Alphabet's money still comes from ads.
Okay, so you've built the world's best search engine and a machine that prints money. What's next? Well, you protect it. The folks at Google realized pretty quickly that owning search wasn't enough if they didn't also control how people got to the internet in the first place.
This quote right here just perfectly nails their strategy. It became all about controlling the gateways. And this thinking is what drove a whole series of brilliant moves to build these massive defensive moats around their core search business.
First up, maybe the single greatest acquisition in business history, for just $50 million. A rounding error for them. Google bought Android. Then they gave it away for free. Why? To make sure that Google search would be the default on billions and billions of smartphones, effectively locking up the mobile internet. Just genius.
Next up, they shelled out $1.65 billion for a little video website called YouTube. Now at the time, this looked super risky. There were all sorts of copyright concerns. But Google saw the bigger picture. They weren't just buying a video site, they were buying the world's second largest search engine and guaranteeing they'd own the future of online video.
And finally, in 2008, they just decided to build their own gateway. They launched the Chrome browser. By making a browser that was faster and safer than anything else out there, they could control the entire user experience from the second you go online, making sure Google was always the starting point, the front door to the internet itself.
And that brings us to today. Right now, Alphabet is fighting this massive two-front war. On one side, you have an almost unbelievable technological future, and on the other, a growing tidal wave of regulators trying to rein them in.
On the first front, you have the promise of Agent AI. This is the next giant leap. With models like Gemini 3, the whole idea changes. It's not about you searching for information anymore. It's about an AI that acts for you, a personal agent that can plan your whole trip, book the flights, and manage your calendar,
all from one simple command. It's mind-blowing stuff. But on the other front, there's the harsh reality of antitrust. The European Union alone has hit them with more than 8 billion euros in fines for everything from favoring their own shopping service, to forcing their apps onto Android phones, to dominating the ad market. Regulators are basically screaming that Google has become too powerful. And this battle really came to a head in the US in 2025. The Department of Justice ruled that yes, Google had maintained an illegal monopoly on search, mostly by paying companies like Apple billions to be the default search engine. But, and this is a huge but, the court stopped short of the ultimate penalty, breaking up the company. So a huge win for Alphabet, all things considered. And that leaves us right here with this fundamental, massive question for the coming years. Has Google become so essential, so integrated into our world that it's basically a public utility now, something we can't function without? Or is it a private empire that has just become too powerful, an empire that stifles competition and controls the very flow of the world's information? How we answer that question is going to define the future of the internet itself.